Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into an absolutely fascinating piece of curriculum design. We're looking at a complex 13-day high school English language arts cascade known simply as the Memoir. If you've ever wondered how we can completely revolutionize the way students interact with text, with evidence, and even with their own psychology, we're in the right place. Let's unpack exactly how the architecture of this incredibly unique simulation actually works. Let's kick things off with a quiet, yet incredibly powerful thesis from a fictional tech founder named Marcus Vance. He says, "I don't trust myself to write the parts I most want to be honest about." Wow. I mean, that single quote carries massive psychological weight, right? And it sets the absolute ultimate stakes for the student. Because in this simulation, the student isn't just sitting at a desk taking notes. They're actually acting as a ghostwriter for Vance. His tech company, BridgeKit, has just suffered a massive data exposure event. So this quote tells the student exactly what their real job is, to find the truth that the subject himself might be unconsciously hiding. So that brings us to the core attention framing our entire investigation today. Think about this. How do you teach high school seniors to catch a tech billionaire's confirmation bias without ever opening a textbook? It's an awesome puzzle, and we're going to solve it together right now. Instead of just handing students a boring list of cognitive biases to memorize, the memoir practically throws them into an investigative arc. They literally have to uncover the truth behind this fictional data exposure event by sifting through competing documents, raw transcripts, and leaked memos. It's like a giant puzzle. Section 1. Welcome to the Write Studio, Stakes, and the No-Spin Clause. To really make this work, the simulation relies on absolute 100% immersion. Students step into their roles as third-year hires at a fictional Boston agency called the Write Studio. So no, they aren't just writing a standard 5-paragraph essay for their teacher. They're preparing a polished manuscript chapter for a high-stakes publication. And during orientation, they get hit with their core operating principle, the no-spin clause. Now, the curriculum makes it crystal clear that this isn't just a checklist or some legal procedure. It's a professional posture. It ensures that any disputed claims are surfaced as part of a rigorous editorial discipline long before a manuscript ever goes to print. Within the world of the simulation, these students are contractually obligated to find and document the spin. Section 2. The Patience Framework. Tools for the Investigation. The methodology driving this whole investigation completely avoids heavy academic jargon. Thank goodness, right? Instead, the Patience Framework uses 8 field-authentic capacities as the working tools for our ghostwriter. These absolutely aren't your standard high school English terms. Capacities like productive failure recovery or collaborative reasoning serve as the actual cognitive moves a working professional brings to the field. Take information discernment, for example. In the simulation, this translates to reading the documentary record at register and actively sorting a first account claim from cross-account confirmation. It's brilliant because it treats students like absolute professionals. But the really crucial point here is the signature capacity, thinking about your thinking, or TATE for short. Now, in the context of ghostwriting, this means catching your own voice intruding on the subjects. It means catching your own first instinct framing intruding on the page. I mean, we all know how incredibly hard it is for anyone to recognize their own internal biases, let alone a teenager, right? TATE isn't just some extra overlay. It operates as the field's daily discipline, made completely visible to the student. It is the ultimate goal of the entire curriculum. Section 3. Building the Case, the Documentary Record Build. Let's look at the actual timeline to see how this curriculum strategically builds tension day by day. Across the first 4 days, the documentary record escalates rapidly. Day 1, students establish a voice baseline. They read non-controversial transcripts just to learn how Marcus Vance speaks. Normal stuff. By day 2, they get his first-hand account of the massive data exposure crisis. Okay, making sense. But then day 3 hits, and boom, they are flooded with counterparty material. We're talking a podcast from his co-founder, a leaked board memo, a journalistic article. Suddenly, Marcus's story has some serious holes in it. Then, day 4 drops curated contemporaneous emails from the actual week of the crisis. It literally pits the founder's reflective memory directly against cold, hard, contemporaneous evidence. Section 4. The Audit. Finding the Gap in Truth. This brings us to a really critical phase called the audit. This is where students have to find the gap in the truth by comparing what the subject remembers with what the documentary record actually proves. Let's look at a specific example.
Take a reflective memory from a day 2 transcript, years after the fact. Marcus claims the crisis was tractable. That's what I told myself. See, he's presenting it as his genuine in-the-moment belief. But compare that to the contemporaneous record. An email sent on November 4th during the crisis itself, where he explicitly writes, "We need to position this as tractable." Boom. The students catch the subject folding a strategic, directive, operational use of a word into a warm, reflective memory. Finding that exact gap is what drives the whole investigation forward.
Section 5, the inflection points, making the binding call.
Now, the simulation absolutely doesn't just let students sit back and observe these gaps passively. Oh no! They are forced into making binding, defensible choices under multi-day pressure using what's called a calculated risk architecture. A student can't just throw up their hands and say, "Yeah, I think Marcus is lying." First, they actually have to legally commit to a framing path in writing. Second, they must name a falsification condition, meaning they have to state exactly what future evidence would prove their current framing wrong. Talk about accountability. And finally, step 3, they have to continually revise and defend this stance under multi-day pressure as brand new evidence unlocks. And I just love this foundational rule: boring choice wins. If you know high schoolers, you know they usually gravitate right toward the dramatic. But here, rigorous, careful evidence synthesis is rewarded heavily over flashy storytelling or crazy leaps of logic. The methodical move outscores the dramatic move every single time on the rubric. No exceptions. It actively trains students to value accuracy and nuance way over sensationalism, a real game changer. Section 6, the reveal, the discovery first protocol. All of this sets up a massive payoff on day 13, finally bridging the gritty, real-world agency simulation with high-level academic rigor. Up until this very point, students have been using fueled authentic translations. They've been casually talking about first account dominance and sympathetic first instinct frames. It's only at the very end that the curriculum finally maps these terms to their standard academic research names, like anchoring, confirmation bias, and hindsight bias. And holding back these standard labels is absolute genius. It ensures the students actually do the authentic, rigorous work of identifying the bias in the wild before they ever receive the academic name for it. So the label just becomes a recognition of what they've already mastered, not just another vocabulary word they have to memorize for a test. Which leaves us with this final, highly provocative thought. If a simulation can teach students to catch a fictional CEO's confirmation bias hidden deeply within a complex documentary record, what biases will they start to catch in themselves? That right there is the true power of the thinking about your thinking framework. It doesn't just make them better readers, it literally makes them sharper, more thoughtful investigators of the entire world around them. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep thinking about your thinking.